High on the bluffs of Lake Michigan, in a secluded area of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, is an abandoned road that some believe is haunted by the spirits of its tragic and mysterious past. Fitzsimmons Road is a long and narrow stretch of crumbling pavement that runs through old farm fields and a dense forest of what is now Milwaukee Park, a massive recreational area. The road was once used by the early settlers who lived here in the 1800s, but now the abandoned road lies in ruin, with overgrown weeds reclaiming the land. The abandoned section of Fitzsimmons Road extends from a barricade by the train tracks all the way to a steep cliff that overlooks Lake Michigan. Towards the end of the road by the lake is a large berm and a series of barricades made of soil and rocks. These barricades were placed in the road in the late 1980s to prevent speeding cars from driving off the cliff, which has actually happened, and I cover those events later in this story. Scary stories about Fitzsimmons Road and Milwaukee Park being haunted are well known, and some who visit the overgrown pathway in hopes of connecting with something supernatural have reported strange experiences. People who walk along the dark and desolate road at night often describe an overwhelming sense of unease, as though something is watching them from the trees that line the road. Some have even reported seeing a dark figure darting between the trees and hearing the distinct sound of footsteps like someone is following closely behind them. Legends claim the area is haunted by the ghost of a demented farmer who can be seen at night roaming the woods surrounding Fitzsimmons Road. But one of the most chilling ghost stories associated with the abandoned road revolves around the tragic death of a young woman who drove her car off the end of the cliff in the 1980s. Unlike some haunted legends that are based purely on folklore and fictional stories, this devastating event did actually happen, and some have even questioned the circumstances behind the woman's untimely death. On the night of May 22, 1982, Gwendolyn Johnson, a 17-year-old from Milwaukee and a soon-to-be high school graduate, attended a house party and a meetup with friends at a local bar later that night. At around 2 o'clock in the morning, she left the bar alone, telling her friends she was headed home for the night, and sadly, it would be the last time they would see her alive. Instead of driving home from the bar that was only minutes away, she drove to Fitzsimmons Road, which in 1982 did not have a barricade because it was still open for public travel. For reasons that remain a mystery, she floored the gas pedal all the way to the end of the road, smashed through the guardrail, and plunged 125 feet from the top of the cliff into the freezing depths of Lake Michigan. The wrecked vehicle was discovered in the waters below the cliff the following day, and the body was later recovered from the lake nearly 2 miles away from the crash scene. The death of Gwendolyn Johnson was a huge shock to everyone who knew her. She was only 3 weeks away from graduation and was even scheduled to begin basic training for the Marine Corps later that year. Even though most people believe she took her own life on that fateful night, some think she could have been trying to escape someone pursuing her and accidentally drove off the cliff, but no evidence was ever found to suggest foul play. In the years following Gwendolyn's tragic death, ghost stories began circulating about the apparition of a young woman appearing in the abandoned section of the road near the cliff. Ghost hunters have also done investigations at the edge of the cliff and allegedly captured strange audio recordings of a woman's voice and other EVPs. There are also stories about electronic devices malfunctioning at the end of the road, and this is something I experienced myself when my camera suddenly stopped recording for no reason and completely froze. This of course could have just been a coincidence since I've had problems with my camera before, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Dark legends about people coming back from the grave to haunt the road after driving off the cliff existed even before the 1982 crash, but most of these stories are based on fictional events. Long before the woman's deadly crash, legends were told about the road being haunted by drag racers who accidentally drove off the cliff in the 1950s. Although it's very possible the remote section of Fitzsimmons Road was used for drag racing, I found zero historical evidence of another driver other than Gwendolyn driving off the cliff at the end. The lore surrounding Fitzsimmons Road takes an even darker turn with the twisted tale of a deranged farmer who allegedly went mad in the 1800s and committed a series of grisly murders. According to one version of the eerie legend, the farmer lived alone on an old farm that once stood on Plevoc Road, another abandoned road that connects to Fitzsimmons. After dealing with years of loneliness and the pressures of farm life, the reclusive farmer lost control and snapped. In a fit of rage, he grabbed an axe from the barn and went house to house, murdering everyone who lived on the road before taking his own life. Another version of the legend says the farmer took the lives of his family with the axe and then buried them in unmarked graves on the farm before vanishing into the woods, never to be seen again. Legends claim the ghost of the farmer haunts Plevoc Road and the area surrounding Fitzsimmons Road, and strange occurrences in the park are said to be connected with the tragic tale. An empty house site off Plevoc Road is even said to be the farm where the murders took place, and according to legend, the dark figure of a man in overalls has been seen roaming the fields of the former property. The story about an axe-wielding farmer committing murder and later haunting the road he once lived on is scary, but after researching the area's history, I found zero evidence that this event actually happened, and it is likely made up. If such a terrible crime was committed, it would have been reported in every major newspaper across the United States, but I found nothing during my search. There were, in fact, dozens of farmers who lived along this road a long time ago, but none of them went crazy or committed murder. Long before the land around Fitzsimmons Road became a public park in the 1960s, it was used by farmers as early as the 1830s. Many of the farmers who lived here were Irish and German immigrants and some of Oak Creek's earliest settlers. Why the area was abandoned by the people who lived here is a mystery, but all of the farm homes were eventually torn down as time went on, and the roads leading to them were no longer maintained by the city. Even though the buildings are long gone, the Hughes cabin, which was built in the 1830s, still stands today, and it is the only remaining home from Bender Park. The old cabin once stood in the park near Fitzsimmons Road before it was moved to Oak Creek's Historical Museum in 1978. The dark and creepy legends of Fitzsimmons Road has made it a place of both intrigue and fear, and it isn't the only abandoned road in Bender Park that is believed to be haunted. Only minutes away, a series of hiking trails in the woods will lead you to Oakwood Road, another overgrown dead end with a dangerous cliff that claimed the lives of 2 teenagers in the 1970s. The cliff at the end of Oakwood Road, which is also known as the Road to Nowhere, is extremely steep and dangerous, and thinking about a car driving off the end of it is terrifying, but that's exactly what happened in 1976. In 1976, a car with 4 18-year-olds traveled to the end of Oakwood Road after knocking down a barricade and a telephone pole, according to the newspaper article. The speeding vehicle drove off the end of the cliff and plummeted 150 feet into Lake Michigan, taking the lives of 2 of the 4 teens in the car. It's unknown if the driver was intoxicated or even knew about the cliff at the end of the road, and details about events leading up to the crash are a mystery. Oakwood Road is said to be haunted by the 2 young men who lost their lives, as well as by others who drove off the cliff, but like Fitzsimmons Road, I was only able to find the one documented case from 1976. While the legends of drag racers and a murderous farmer are not rooted in any documented events, the stories surrounding Fitzsimmons Road have both frightened and fascinated locals for decades. And even though some of the stories are just urban legends, that doesn't mean the road isn't haunted by one of the car crash victims or by someone else who died in the woods. Many people who visit the abandoned roads of Bender Park are convinced the area is haunted, while others consider the park to be nothing more than a peaceful place to go for a walk. But what do you think? Have you ever walked any of these abandoned roads at night? And if so, did you see a ghost or experience anything unusual? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. The Seven Bridges Trail is a scenic hiking path in Milwaukee's Grant Park and a favorite among locals and tourists seeking an escape into nature. The 2-mile trail winds through lush forest canopies with steep ravines, old wooden bridges, and amazing views of Lake Michigan. Despite its natural beauty and peaceful atmosphere, the Seven Bridges Trail is also steeped in eerie legends and ghostly tales, most of which involve the old wooden bridges that date back to the 1930s. The trailhead greets visitors with a Bavarian-style covered bridge and an inscription on the archway above the entrance that reads the following: "Enter this wildwood and view the haunts of nature." While the message is an invitation to explore the unnamed beauty of the trail, some interpret the word haunts as a foreshadowing of the eerie legends tied to the location. The covered bridge at the trail's entrance is also the backdrop for one of the park's most well-known legends involving a floating mist and the glowing apparition of a mysterious woman who is said to roam the trail and bridges at night. According to one of the many claims of ghost sightings on the wooded trail, a strange mist was allegedly seen floating up from the creek underneath the covered bridge at the entrance, as well as the apparition of a woman. The apparition seen at the bridge is said to be the spirit of a sad woman who wanders the trail at night looking for her children who drowned in Lake Michigan a long time ago. The spectral figure is said to glow faintly in the darkness of the woods, emitting a white or blue glowing light near the bridges and in the forest. Others believe the sightings could actually be a residual haunting, a fragment of energy from someone who spent significant time in the park or who died here under mysterious circumstances. Another legend of the trail are reports of human-like screaming coming from the trail and forest and close to the trail's end at Lake Michigan shoreline. These screams are said to occur late at night, and they have been heard by many people hiking in the woods after dark. In one scary story I found, a young woman visited the park at night with her boyfriend, and as they were walking back up the trail from the lake, they heard the loud and terrifying scream of a girl coming from the woods close by. The couple was so startled by the scream that they ran all the way back to the parking lot and even called the Milwaukee police to report what they heard. When the police arrived, the couple showed the officer the area where they heard the scream, but nobody was found in the woods and there was no evidence of a struggle or that anyone had been attacked. Skeptics argue that the screams could be a prank or have natural explanations, such as the cries of foxes or coyotes whose calls can sound eerily human. Many who hear the screams, though, insist that they are unnaturally loud and filled with human-like emotion, as if someone is being attacked. If the Seven Bridges Trail really is haunted, no one knows why, but many point to stories about murders in the woods, drownings, and a man who allegedly hanged himself from the rafters of the covered bridge. Even though the forest is known for its grim stories about human death, the truth is that there are no documented cases of anyone dying on the hiking trails or any of the Seven Bridges. There are also no documented drownings of kids to support the ghost stories about the grieving ghost of a mother roaming the trails in sorrow. I was able to find cases of bodies found in the ponds and parking lots of Grant Park, but not on the Seven Bridges Trail. Many people are convinced, though, that these old hiking trails, which have existed since the early 1900s, are haunted by a mysterious force that makes its presence known after dark. Numerous visitors have claimed to hear disembodied voices and footsteps while hiking the trail, especially near the old wooden bridges below the ravine. The voices are often soft and indistinct, as if whispering from the surrounding woods, but the footsteps are reported as clear and deliberate, sometimes even following hikers. Despite looking for a source, most people find no one is around, leaving them spooked and unsettled. There are also stories about visitors having rocks thrown at them from the top of the ravine while walking through the lower section by the bridges. This is known to happen at night, but I found one story of a man who visited the park during the day and saw rocks tumbling over the trail ahead of him as if someone was throwing them from a distance, but when he looked up at the ravine, nobody was there. This could certainly be nothing more than a dangerous prank, with someone throwing rocks from above and then hiding behind trees, but those who experience it are convinced they're alone on the trail. Another unexplained occurrence are the reports of strange floating lights in the woods that have been described as orbs that hover or move erratically through the trees off the trail. Some consider the strange lights to be supernatural, but others believe they could be headlights in the distance or flashlights from late-night hikers in the woods. The mysterious lights could also be connected with sightings of the glowing ghost I talked about earlier. The ghost allegedly emits a glowing light and roams the trails and bridges. Later that night, I went back to the Seven Bridges Trail with my camera, and I'm glad I did because I actually captured something on film that may or may not be paranormal. I'm really not sure what it is. I'm going to play the footage in a minute, and then you can let me know what you think. But first I wanted to show the covered bridge and what it looks like after dark. So this is the trail's entrance, and this was allegedly the site of a hanging. The story says that someone hanged themselves from the rafters of the bridge, but like I said earlier in the video, the story is likely made up because I wasn't able to find any proof of that actually happened, so it's more than likely just an urban legend. But moving through to the open section of the bridge, this is where the glowing ghost of a woman has appeared, as well as floating mist that comes up from under the bridge and floats over it. It's unknown if these sightings still occur or if the sightings occurred during the day or at night or both. Those details are unknown. These woods are really creepy at night. Now, I had the whole park to myself. There was nobody else there, and I was just walking along this forest trail by myself, just hoping to capture something on film. And it wasn't long after this that I did film a floating object. I have no idea what it is. Maybe there's a logical explanation for it, but I walked down a staircase that goes down to the bottom of this ravine, and that's when I filmed something that flies right in front of the camera that I didn't see in person. I mean, maybe I just didn't notice it, but I think I probably would have because it was illuminated when the flashlight hit it and it flies right in front of the camera. You're going to see here in a minute. So when I get to the bottom of the stairs, if you look on the right side of the screen, directly above the opening of the bridge, you're going to see an object appear. And then that object moves directly in front of the flashlight, and it actually gets illuminated for a couple of seconds. Right there. And then keep watching, it zips off to the left. Now replay the clip. The way it hovers in front of the camera like that and then moves a little to the left, nice and slow, and then takes off really fast. That's what drew my attention to it. And at first I thought maybe it's a bug, but that's not possible because it's too cold at night. I mean, it's winter in Wisconsin. It's getting down to below freezing. The bugs are pretty much done until spring at this point. There was even a snowstorm the night after I filmed this video, so it's very unlikely that was a bug. And so the only other thing it could really be, if it's not supernatural, would be just a leaf getting carried by the breeze. Maybe a leaf fell down or a very light piece of tree bark, and then a breeze off the lake, which is right there to the right of the bridge. Maybe it got caught in a breeze and that carried it past the camera. I mean, that could very well be what it is. I'm not going to say 100% it's supernatural because I have no idea. But what's interesting about it is how it zips off really fast at the end, almost like there's intelligence. So I have no idea, but I thought it was interesting enough to include in the video, and then you guys could let me know what you think. I mean, do you think it was a ghost? Do you think it's just a leaf getting blown in the breeze? Leave a comment below. I continued walking down the trail after that, and I filmed the lakefront area. That section of the trail is allegedly where this ghost woman, this glowing ghost, has been seen looking for her children who drowned. And so I filmed the bridges. I filmed all of the bridges all the way back to the parking lot. I filmed them from different angles. I got some shots of the woods. I didn't catch anything else on film, at least that I'm aware of. I haven't reviewed all of the footage. So if you guys see something that I'm missing, let me know. But I'd really like to know what you guys think of this story. If you've ever been to the Seven Bridges Trail, have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever witnessed a floating orb or heard a scream in the woods or anything unusual? Leave a comment below. I'd love to know. Whitnall Park in Franklin, Wisconsin is a massive recreational area known for its lake and winding nature trails, but aside from the peaceful atmosphere, the park is also known for something much darker. The scenic park has been the site of strange phenomena, including weird lights hovering above the pond, ghost sightings, babies crying, and unexplained cries for help that could have a connection with an unsolved murder. The main ghost story centers around the park's man-made waterfall located on the far north side of the pond by one of the hiking trails. According to park visitors and a story featured in the book The Ghostly Tales of Milwaukee, the apparition of a woman in white appears in front of the waterfall at night, pacing back and forth in search of her child in distress. The book says that when the ghost makes an appearance, it is usually accompanied by the sound of a baby crying, either from the forest or from the pond above the waterfall. Witnesses say that when the baby's crying begins, the ghost vanishes and the crying stops. Some have described the mysterious woman as looking translucent and missing both of her feet, almost as if she's floating above the water. The faint sound of weeping has also been heard during these encounters, and the woman is usually empty-handed or sometimes cradling a crying baby in her arms. How long these sightings last and how often they occur is unknown, but some witnesses claim the woman mumbles to herself and even shouts, "Leave my baby alone," before disappearing in the woods below the waterfall. The ghostly woman of Whitnall Park is not confined in the area around the waterfall either. She has also been reported farther downstream near a remote trail that runs close to the riverbank. Her presence downstream has led to speculation that the river itself holds a significant connection to her story. Some believe she may have tragically lost her child in the waters, or that both of their lives ended in the river due to an accident or darker circumstances. The woman's identity and whether or not the death of a mother and child ever occurred at this location is a total mystery. I spent a considerable amount of time looking through dozens of old newspaper articles to see if I could find anything about a woman and a baby dying at the waterfall or anywhere else in the park, but my search did not reveal anything that would explain the ghost sightings or the crying baby. The eerie sound of a baby crying is one of the most unsettling reports associated with Whitnall Park, and the cries are not only heard at the waterfall or accompanied by a visual sighting of the ghostly woman. Visitors have described hearing faint but distinct cries of an infant echoing through the woods, especially during quiet late-night hours or early in the morning. These cries seem to come from nowhere, often stopping abruptly as if the source vanished into thin air. In addition to the crying, the sound of a human scream has also been heard in the woods near 92nd Street, and this might actually have a connection with an unsolved murder that took place in the woods in the 1970s. The tragic unsolved murder of 14-year-old John Zara is forever linked to Whitnall Park, where his body was discovered on February 20th, 1976, near 92nd Street. This dark chapter in Milwaukee's history has not only haunted investigators, but may also haunt the park itself, as eerie phenomena have been reported in the area where his remains were found. John Zara, a high school student, vanished on February 20th, 1976, after leaving school and walking through a wooded area in the park. He was attacked and assaulted, and his partially decomposed body, along with his clothes, were discovered days later in a marshy section of the park. His killer has never been identified. Over the years, many visitors have reported hearing disembodied screams and cries from the woods at night, especially near the area where Zara's body was found. These sounds are described as chilling and filled with anguish, echoing through the quiet woods and unsettling those who hear them. Some believe these cries could be tied to residual energy left by the tragedy, with John's restless spirit or the horror of the event imprinted on the land. Mysterious lights have also been reported at Whitnall Park, and there is at least one story from an eyewitness who saw the weird lights while visiting the woods at night with friends. These lights, often described as glowing orbs or flickering flashes, are typically seen at night in secluded areas of the park, including near the waterfall and over the pond and hiking trails. In 2018, one witness went to the park around midnight with two friends, but they remained in the car, fearing they might get ticketed by the police if they entered the woods during after hours. They turned the headlights off and watched the sky over the park's pond when all three of them saw blue flickering lights appear in the sky above the waterfall where the ghost was seen. The witness said the strange lights almost looked like flashlights, but they were blue in color, not white, and the lights flickered for a second or two before disappearing. How long the episode lasted is unknown, but the driver was frightened by the lights and the group decided it was best to leave the park. Some believe these lights are a manifestation of energy tied to the park's many tragic legends, such as the ghostly woman at the waterfall or the unsolved murder of John Zara. Paranormal investigators have speculated that these lights may be tied to residual energy or even intelligent hauntings, potentially representing spirits attempting to communicate or make their presence known. Others believe the lights are caused by swamp gas, and this is possible since the land below the waterfall is marshy, but the true cause of the phenomena remains a mystery. But what do you think about the ghost stories of Whitnall Park and the other haunted places I covered in this video? Have you been to any of these allegedly haunted locations, and if so, did you have a paranormal experience? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more videos filmed on location like this one. Also, if you know of a haunted place you'd like to suggest for a future video, share it in the comments below. And before you go, click on the video you see on the screen. I have additional videos featuring haunted places in Wisconsin and Illinois, and I plan to feature locations in other states as well.